Ladies and gentlemen, this is Secret Scan again. I'm Open Mike Eagle, and I am what had happened wasn't myself once again, putting myself on the hot seat, this time with a legend in underground hip hop. It's been a legendary radio show host, hip hop historian, helped run a merchandise empire called Fifth Element in Minneapolis, and countless other things, I'm sure. But I'm privileged to be joined on a conversation about my debut album, Unapologetic Art Rap. I'm privileged to be joined by the man himself, Kevin Beacham. Kevin, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, and that was a very glorious introduction, and I'm honored to be here. And thank you, man. Yeah, it's a pleasure. I can't remember exactly when we very first met. I have a few different early memories of like us like being around each other, and I know we have like different connections with Chicago stuff and the NACRO and all that. But I'm like, I can't remember exactly when I first like kind of got aware of your music. I had a moment like, I know that I saw that. I remember seeing you somewhere before, like, oh, he's been around somewhere. I know that this ain't my first time seeing him. But so it's like I don't know exactly. But I do remember like probably around the time of this album, there was like a 1-2 punch where I heard something from this album and then saw I think I came to LA for like Scribble or something like that. But I saw you and heard you around the same time. Like, okay, there's something special here. I mean, I probably heard you before, but there was like this moment around this album where I just heard you. I was like, wait a minute. Okay, let me pay attention to what's happening here. So I picked this album, the one like because I'm like you said, I'm known as the hip hop history guy. So I'm like, I should do the oldest album that one of the older albums. And you answered one of my questions like, do you can I know you did some things before this, like you did a few like the EP and like some CDR stuff, but I was curious, do you consider this your debut album? And you just sort of confirmed that. Can you talk about that maybe that process to getting to like those things out before this album, like how they played a part in you building your sound and style to be able to make this album?
That's a really interesting question. Cause this is my debut album, but it's not really my first album because I made an album before this that I never put out. It was this album called The Meditation Hustle. And it was this weird thing I was doing. It was almost like I was trying to like do like a fake self-help system through hip hop, almost that sort of thing. But I went super hard with the metaphor, like too hard, and I was like, I don't know if I should rock with this. So some of those songs made it on this mixtape I had called Premeditated Folly that I think came out before the album. Hello world. Hello. You are now rocking with Open Mike Eagle and DJ Handprints. DJ Handprints. This is Premeditated Folly, y'all. Here we go. It's a terrifying living. Trying to put out a record with Caroline shipping. It's like I'm paralyzed trying to lift things. And another roadside attraction. Basically, I put that project together because I was going on my first tour. So I went out with Bus Driver and Abstract Rude and just like tried to put some songs together to have something to sell that looked decent and sounded decent.
Somebody told me I should rap in a louder voice, and that's the only way to capture a crowd of choice. Well, let me hoist a surrender flag. How much force can a rapper guy pretend to have?
So those were some songs that I was, making with and happy with at the time that I put on that project. And this whole time, I'm also starting to bake the songs that would go on Unapologetic Art Rap. So that first tour, I'm performing like half the songs on the album on this tour, and kind of putting it together once I'm seeing what the business situation is around LA, because it was wildly changing in front of my eyes. It went from being a very vibrant underground rap economy to like all of the labels kind of falling off one by one. And so once I kind of realized through Bus Driver, like I could present something to Mush, that's when I kind of started, okay, let me try to put this project together. And that's what ended up becoming Unapologetic Art Rap.
That's perfect because my next question was about Mush. How did you connect with Mush? So that was through Bus Driver?
Yeah, Bus Driver was at that point in his career, I think, where he was definitely seeing that there was a next generation of like Project Blow cats. So like myself and No Can Do and Dumbfounded, that like, we had been in the dojo, we had been developing skills, we had been making songs, we had been doing all the local shows. But the thing that was kind of not happening in our careers was like getting music out properly. in a way that people could really hear it. It could make the kind of impact that releases needed to make. We were all basically selling out the trunk at the time. And he had a really good relationship with Mush. So, yeah, he basically just walked me in there. Like he said, just whenever you got something ready, I'm gonna show it to them. If they like it, then you'll come in for a meeting and XYZ.
That was like kind of like your first time stepping to a label. Were there other things you were trying to do before that that didn't kind of pan out?
I mean, I think that I had probably sent some music out to some labels like cold calling. I'd probably done that. I was doing everything that any website told me an indie artist should do at that time. Like I would do it. So, I'll mail stuff out all the time, but never hear much back. Cause it was really all, of course, it's all about relationships, and I didn't have any relationships. So that was my first time really in a situation to do business with a label.
Okay, cool. And it's the one thing that stands out, and I think probably you would hear this a lot is that your style. You have a unique approach to your style and presence. And I think that's rare for an artist. I think a lot of times, artists are easy to put into a box like that's. I can compare that to that, and I think you're harder to do. Was that something that was a little more natural, or did you have to spend time crafting how to like develop the open mic eagle sound?
Yeah, I think a lot of development went into it. And what I hear when I listen back to this album, like I definitely hear like the punchline influence of my writing style, which came from all of my years freestyling. So the punchlines and the, quote unquote multis, like that style being very attractive to me. And then, I'm doing a lot of like melodic stuff. And I think that's partly influenced by my time at Project Blowed, honestly. Seeing how adventurous cats like Abstract Rude, Micah Nine, General Black, rest in peace, like how melodic they would get with the different styles and approaches, even like in a verse or the layers of vocals in a hook, Bus Driver, of course, as well. So I think I was trying to synthesize all of that at the time. So a lot of what you hear in Unapologetic Art Rap is just like my development right at that phase.
Looking back now, like what do you think are some of the key like stark contrasts to like what your style was then and to how you developed it now? Is some things like wow, that's really different, or do you feel it's sort of like a natural evolution or what?
I do feel like it's a natural evolution, but it's only natural if you really understand where I was coming from, which was like I had spent my entire rap life before this point, and there's a couple little releases before that, but I wasn't really making a lot of music. I was doing a lot of street corner rapping, I was doing a lot of freestyling, a lot of ciphering, rapping on stage, which is projection and timing and theatrics and all of that. But what I found, at least in my personal journey, is that didn't translate really easily to rapping in a studio. Like I found that when I rapped the way I rapped on stage or on the street corner in the studio, like it wasn't translating well. And so I was trying to find ways to like have a comfortable voice on the microphone. So a lot of what I did was very much down here on Unapologetic Art Rap because I felt like I had a lot of comfort down in this area. But that was really just me kind of starting. And like now I'm at the point where I have like a fuller capability of my range as a vocalist, so I can do a lot more things. But a lot of Unapologetic Art Rap was me trying to do what I was comfortable doing, and I wasn't comfortable doing all that much.
Ladies and gents, I've seen the future, and pretty soon you'll need a PhD to be an English tutor. You're gonna have to put your house up to lease a scooter. We still work, but our bosses are now mean computers. They make the decisions on when a lunch break is given.
So maybe can you break down the art and who did it and just like what the science is?
So my man Ralph, who was in our crew, the swim team, but like he was in our crew as like an artist more than as a musician. Like I think he played like rock music, but he was a really super dope visual artist. And so like how like Mirror One would do all the Project Blow stuff? Like he was our Mirror One. So he did my solo album. He did Sat's solo album. He did Alpha MC's solo album. He did the Thirsty Fish album. I want to say he did a swim team thing too, but like he was our guy. Whenever one of us had a project, we'd have him do the cover. And he's just an incredible artist. But this one, yeah, like there's this impressionistic thing of me as a kid painting what should be a self-portrait, but it's all like exaggerated and distorted. And I forgot what we based this off of something. I think it might have been like some Norman Rockwell painting or something that we based it off of. But then we kind of just flipped it. It's on the nose in a way because it's art, but there's a subtext that it speaks to in terms of me painting myself, the distortions of it, and all of that, like that really kind of speak to the themes I'm working in.
Right. No, no. It's like if you look at this art, it will prepare you for the music. They work hand in hand. And the other thing that's funny is that I forgot when you flip it over, I could easily mistake you for me because we look like twins.
We got a common ancestor somewhere, man.
Yeah, that's a little side note.
That's hilarious.
Producers. Now, there's a handful of producers on this record, and a few of them are like are prominent and show up a few times. So, like, I want to talk about some of those producers first, and we'll get to the ones who just do like one song as we get to those songs. But can you get a little background on talking about Always Prolific, Atomatic, Awkward, and Maestro, kind of like the reoccurring producers, right?
And Quest One isn't in that list. I figured he would have been in there too, but
Yeah, he did one track. Yeah, so he's one of the ones that did one track. Yeah.
oh, okay. All right. Well, so then I'm conflating that because then I ended up doing a lot more stuff with Quest over the next couple albums. So I considered him to be in that core group, but you're right, he only did one on here. But speaking of Quest, Always Prolific and Quest One used to be a production duo called Pros and Conquest. And when I first came to Project Blowed, they were the cats in our generation who like lived near the Blowed and were making beats, and you could always come through and vibe with them and get beats. I ended up performing with Always Prolific for years, like he wasn't like a DJ, but he always added like live beats to my set and backups and great on stage energy and all of that. And I rocked with him for years and years and years and years. So we had a relationship even outside of just production. But at this time, yeah, like I would go to their spot, Pro and Quest, and just get beats from whoever had beats. And a lot of times that was Pro, and I used to just make a lot of stuff with Pro's beats. Now later on, Pro and Quest and Maestro formed a group with Alpha MC called E Super. So Maestro was around then too, and Maestro was like he was like young Premier to us. Like he was friends with us, but we didn't all quite hang as tough. But Maestro's beats were always crazy. Whenever there was like beat battles at Project Blow, like Maestro would come through and just serve everybody. So it was always like getting a gym to get a beat from him. He had a bunch of beats on the Thirsty Fish album that we were just super excited about. Like all our like singles, our big bangers was stuff that Maestro did.
It's the thirst makes you do things in the first place. If what you think is the worst case is what you searching for, a person searching whose thirst is worse than yours. Thirst takes hunger first of all.
Atomatic. I can't remember how I met Atomatic. Like I feel like I only met him in person once, but then we started having this relationship to where he would send me like a pack of beats like every month. And it was probably like the same pack of beats he was sending out in general, but like this is my February 2010 batch. And then he would email them out, and then like people would pick which ones. And I found myself liking a lot of his stuff because it was synthy, so it was very musical. He always had like a lot of chord progressions and stuff in his beats. And that always made songs easier to write for me when they had that sort of foundation. But he wasn't local like everybody else that I'm talking about. So Pro, Quest, Maestro, they're all local. They're all Blodians. Like I'm seeing these people all the time. Atomatic, I didn't really spend a bunch of time with, but we did make like a handful of songs together over the years. So Awkward is a MC, producer, b-boy, and DJ from Bristol. And me and him had just met when I was making this album. This album was already done, but me and Awkward started talking on the internet. We couldn't have met at that point because he was still in the UK. But I loved his beat style, and we really clicked and started working together a lot. On this album, the two songs that he didn't originally do those beats. One of them, Pro did at first. Awkward took the vocals and made a different beat. I think that's Garbage Man. And then Unapologetic. Those both were Pro beats that we took the vocals off of, and Awkward built a whole new soundscape. I wouldn't have normally done that. I actually thought it was a weird idea at the time, but I didn't understand that that happens a lot. But it was Mush Records kind of like suggesting that I do that because he thought that too many on the beats on the album kind of sounded alike. So the fact that I knew this guy who was capable of making songs off of the vocals, he was like, "Oh, we should give him a couple, and so he can add some different textures to that."
I can see
Yeah.
that. That makes sense. It feels like you're being yourself unapologetically in your music, and you also either like embrace or spoof or provide commentary about stereotypes and the boxes people get put in. Can you kind of talk about that idea?
I was very like brazen at the time, where like I can say honestly, like looking back at this time, and this is gonna sound so messed up, but it's true, and I can hear it in in how I was doing things. I legit thought I was a genius. like and in the way where like it's just any person's first foray into something and they think they got it all figured out. It has always been about me being myself in the face of what's happening. But I think that I thought that just doing that alone was going to be enough to make me a star, like get like cement my place in whatever, like. And so I think that's where the unapologetic part comes from. Is I thought that was the whole ing. I thought that was it. I thought I beat the game when I figured out that if I am unapologetically myself, I will win. And I think so. A lot of like the enthusiasm with which I lean into some of these concepts, like the art rap party, um, is kind of informed by that thought that this is going to be it. Like, this is the golden ticket. Like, this is it. And in the art rap party specifically, I started doing this thing in LA at that time where I was like really only performing at art shows. And I was having such a good time doing that and connecting with people and like really wanting what I and like some of my peers do to be seen as art, that I really wanted to lean into that further too. That's where that song came from.
It's a sheltered for battered artists, with nightly contests to see who's been smacked the hardest. We only press half the charges, cause we love the punishment like any other passive martyrs. It's the Stockholm Syndrome, a house full of runaways.
This album is good with a lot of the sequencing too, how things build. And this song and the idea of this kind of resonates to me in a certain way because I grew up always feeling different and being called weird since I was in a stroller. So like kind of talk about what the freak flag means, why these kind of like ideas popped up in this album a lot.
This is for the small, this is for the weird. People who know better than to follow what they hear. This is for your fear. My poetry is kept where I'm socially inept, and so the fingernail of small talk is poking me to death. I'm supposed to be an extrovert, but I've observed that I prefer to hide behind having a lack of nerve. Be sort of an attractive turd.
Yeah, and you know, you're 100% right. You got to understand too, I'm in underground hip hop, which at the time is like the most, I mean, you would think it would be a haven for weirdos, and I think I thought it would be, but it's not. Like a lot of times those same like macho attitudes and especially in LA, because what I didn't know before I got here was that the Project Blow had a very post gangbanging vibe. Like them people had went through some shit, and there was people with a foot in both worlds all through the Project Blow. So like, yeah, like it was cool, it was comfortable. They weren't kicking nobody out for being weird, but the community wasn't instantly welcoming. And so, you know, a lot of times I'd feel like a weirdo amongst the weirdos. And again, for me, much the same as you, that's a long thread that had been kind of running through my life. And then I got the concept of the freak flag from some song. I think it was a They Might Be Giants song or something. It was something about letting their freak flag fly. And I just liked that idea. And I just kind of wanted to make a song that was like a beacon to other weirdos. Like, come over here, it's cool.
I want to raise my freak flag higher and higher, and I want to raise my...
I Rock, of course, is that the most popular song on the record?
100%. By far.
It is insulting, cause I can't rap for my job. I quit this bullshit, but I can't live like a slob. The way I want to, baby, swimming in hip-hop.
This song captures and that you beyond this, you got better and better at capturing this is a balance. where there's technical writing and creative writing, talk about like kind of like building that, like, learning to use all those things effectively into a song and how it builds to a song like this.
And you're right, because it's a long process to learn that stuff. And I'd always been brave to, because always want to try to make a big melodic hook. Hooks are important to me just because I listen to a lot of rock music, so those sung melodies always stuck with me. So I always wanted to make sure that I did what I could to put that in my music. Like this song, for instance, like people don't know this hook is an interpolation of a Frank Black song. I think it's called Thalassocracy. And some people pick that up over time, that like I basically repurposed the way that he sung the verse on that song and then changed the words and made that the hook for this song. But again, now you got to look at this in context. This is me who really doesn't know how to record, taking a melody from one of the most, like from one of one of the most legendary alternative singers of all time. Like, oh, I can just do that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Those are the lumps that I took, hearing my voice crack in recordings. I think people gave me a lot of leeway and people were really cool about kind of seeing me start off on this journey. So luckily people don't shit on the fact that I didn't really know how to sing that well at that time. But yeah, it has always been important to me to have a hook to a song. And yeah, and the writing has always been, the verse writing and the technicality has always been important to me too. But I never wanted to really ever sacrifice one for the other.
This one produced by Exile. Talk about how that came about.
It came about through theft.
Oh, the best way.
And not the real bad kind of theft. But so me and Exile, and Exile is an amazing producer, and we have a relationship now. We've made a bunch of songs since then, but back then we didn't really have much of a relationship. And I can't remember how this beat came to me, but I want to say it was through the label, maybe. This beat had come out as part of a producer compilation that like I think Art Don't Sleep put it out. And this was a beat on there that Exile did. And I heard it and I liked it. And I wrote a song to it and recorded it and figured I'll figure the business out later. And luckily, people I knew had relationships with Exile, so we were able to, break him off and clear it or whatever. But it wasn't like Exile gave me this beat. These were the times of the mixtape where if as an MC you heard some shit, you liked it, you would just do it and then try to figure it out later. And luckily we were able to figure it out.
I'm getting the hell up out of here by helicopter. If I have to, I'll borrow Psycho's helicopter. I don't need an umbrella, I need a helicopter. Cause everything here in the scene is getting hella awkward. So raise your hand if you want to get on my
helicopter. Another one of my favorites.
Yeah, I mean it's like one of those I won't say pessimistic, but like cynical kind of songs where like you see everything's going to shit, and you kind of want to point it out and also kind of make fun of it, and just kind of, hey, look everybody, look where we're going. But the conceit for the song is that the world's going to shit, and so I'm gonna get on this helicopter and get the fuck out of here. And if you want to, you can come get on this helicopter with me. We're all gonna bounce. And I think in some ways it's influenced by like black and white thinking in terms of technology bad, new hip hop bad, blah blah. Like real kind of high contrast thinking, not a lot of nuance in between, but also a real sense that I didn't like where things were headed. And I think technology is a good thing to point at because just over the course of our lives we've watched it change so much, and we watched how as it develops and we engage with it in so many ways, it begins to change us culturally. And I often want to say, hey, are we paying any attention to what the psychology of engaging with technology this way is? How is it actually affecting us? Or are we just going to keep diving straightforward into it? So yeah, there's like real concerns in there. There's some naivety in there, but an overall sense of just like things ain't going great. Let's just go do something else.
I'm an art artist. I'm an art artist. Art artist. Yo, what the fuck is art rap? I be going to these shows, they got rappers rapping about art, and it's artists painting the rappers, while the rappers is rapping about the artists that's painting the rappers. This shit is stupid.
What was the road to like the connection with Hannibal? And then this song, and were you there when he recorded this, or did you just get this sent to you from him later?
So, me and Hannibal went to college together. You know, I was around when he first, like, literally first started doing comedy. When he said, "I'm gonna start doing stand up," and he just started doing it, like around school, and then like get whatever gigs he can get around the state and different schools, like, and just watch him do that and like master that over the years and become incredibly successful. It's funny because he's come back around now. He's rapping and he's mastering that too. Like it's super tight.
Hit the 1-3 pocket and I'm cold with it. Go bizzle, slow approach with the dope rhythm. Follow through smooth, got the meditative flow system. And I know soon as the roll hit the wood, rotate slow contact with the pins.
But we've just always had a relationship since college. And when he was in town in LA, I think he was just in LA doing shows kind of before he like super blew up. He might have been writing on Saturday Night Live at this time. I don't remember, but it might have even been right before that. But yeah, I had him at the crib, kind of told him in general what I wanted him to chat about, and he went for it and recorded and what you know, I think it was like one take type situation. You know, he laid it down and there it is.
This to all the adolescent Negro lads who make sketches and daydream the whole class. In 96, they would have been De La Soul fans. In 2010, it's My Chemical Romance. Still rebelling since it's the first sign of intelligence.
All right. Unapologetic, which is probably my favorite song for a few reasons. I mean, I think you're great on it. I'm also a huge No Can Do fan.
No, everybody's got a rapper friend, but my name's higher on the flyer. There's a reason I'm performing after them. You know what makes you seem less important? You just came here to cock jock your best friend's boyfriend. You don't deserve to stand there.
Talk about just working with No Can Do, and that song in particular.
Yeah, it's part of the title track for a reason. And it's me and somebody who I'm privileged to call a peer at that time at Project Blowed. And me and him have always been really, really great friends. But there's no denying that, like, he's got to be one of the top 5 freestylers on the planet. Is him and Micah. I don't, like, it's hard to say between him and Micah 9 which one is better because they do their thing a little different, but they're both, like, super ultra on another level of operation than anybody else.
My name is Jimmy, but my fans call me No Can. The flow is cold like an ice cold Coke can. That was redundant, but fuck it, I'm on the wake up show. I'm all about the freestyle, it's time to cake up though. All about that money shit, not up on that funny shit. Take that punchline, I'ma skin it like a bunny. Make a pelt like I Tonya, fight like Sonya. Sorta like Mortal Kombat, kill 'em when they on that. Perfect execution, beat from Revolution. I swear to God, I'ma change righteous retribution. They don't really want it, they get hunted, they get stunned like
Yeah, when it comes to Off the Head, like, you know, Jimmy, James, No Can Do. It's just absolutely incredible. But then also, yeah, he's got an incredible catalog of music, and he's been, you know, a dope rhymer in the studio, a dope writer for a long time too. So just happy to have him go back and forth with me on this one. He's kind of flexing his things. I'm talking to the kids at the after school program. Both of us just being our unapologetic selves and kind of stepping out into the world. Like he had a little recorded music out then, not much. And, you know, I think both of us at time were trying to stake our claim as like serious artists in our generation of Project Blow. Like, no, take us seriously. Like, you know, yeah, we'll get in the cypher, we'll do all the things, but you know, now we're going to start putting out music. Now, like, you're going to start seeing our releases. You're going to start seeing us on tour. Like that was the feeling of the time. And I think that, you know, that's the kind of energy we attacked the track with.
Makes sense because, you know, No Can was giving me stuff at Scribble Jam and different things. So I was playing like his Impatient EP.
The Impatient. Yeah.
He uses comedy very well in his music, but in a different way than you do, but also in a similar way that you do. So you guys are a great contrast. PC Transmissions. That's the one that's like your production credit. That's your one production credit on this record?
Yep, my one production credit on the album.
What was your process for you as a producer at this time?
Sampling, and in this case, that is a gosh, that is a like the basis of that beat is this recording that Stephen Malkmus did. He did a show at a museum and was playing unreleased songs of his, and him or somebody taped it in the museum, and like I looped that and rhymed over it, and everything is in there. The drums, all of it. It's all from the same sample.
How are things for you? I've been writing pretty lyrics, but missing someone to sing them to. Have the people you've been meeting been affable? I've been faxing you messages, ever syntactical. If there's an actual...
It's so funny, man, because Stephen Malcolm started following me on Twitter a few years ago, and ever since that day, I'm like, is he gonna sue me one day? Is he just gonna like, is he gonna send me that smooth cease and desist? Like, but yeah, because I use his voice too, man. It's really egregious what I was doing, but like, I was on some pirate shit, man. I was on the DIY, like, yo, we just hitting and running, we making songs, and I kind of wrote my bars around the clips that he was like what he was singing. Like I kind of extrapolated a rap song out of like little bits of what he was singing. That's a fan favorite from the album too. Like that's probably right behind I Rock. That would be the one people vibe with the most off of this album.
Was that your first time doing a music video?
Yes, but that video came a lot later, and it wasn't a plan for it. We just kind of did it. Like, it wasn't like it was part of the budget or anything. It was just like me and some people like, hey, let's do a video for this.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I don't think there's any Mush Records videos. Now that I think about it, is there? I don't know if anyone has
Now
a
we
video.
did the video for I Rock is like a real video. He paid good money for that one.
All right. Okay. Work. Okay. You got your videos taken care of for this campaign. Okay. This is Butterscotch.
All my niggas are Vulcaneers are auctioneers for these cryptic airless. Why these thuggy ruggy playing huggy bears ready for same-sex marriage?
They're having children out of wedlock after latex tearing, leaving their honorable families disgraced and
The rapping gay
embarrassed.
like hair tips. So run shit like a legless heiress. Wait, what the fuck am I saying?
The one with the rhyme.
Okay, the pen's pregnant is waddling with his ankles swollen, about to give birth to what?
You and Bus Driver is exciting, and that was one when I saw. I was like, yeah, okay. Before I even like heard it, I was like, okay, that's a lot of personality on one song. That's a lot of personality. That's for one song to contain. It's like maximum personality allowed in any room at one time.
It's true. It's true. He's a monster, man. So this is just styling, right? Like, and us, me and him getting in the studio and like really writing back and forth off each other, which is something I'm always excited to do when I collaborate with somebody. Cause that chasing the rhyme thing, like that's just as a rap listener and a rap appreciator, that's just always exciting to me. So whenever I'm able to go back and forth with somebody like that, and then the fact that it's Bus Driver too, like and we became friends kind of during this process, and then but really more after when we started touring together a lot. So I'd be working with Reagan at this time and be kind of starstruck, like even writing this song. Like I'm like, damn, like in my quiet moments in my head, I'm like, can I even really hang with him like that? Like, this is one of the blow masters, man, and he's rocking with me. But like, it's like, damn, can I really do this? But I don't know. I really, his belief in me helped me kind of believe in myself more too. So his investment of time and energy in me, like made me more confident. So when we got to writing the song and recording, I was really confident and really happy with how it came out, and was just super excited for everybody to hear it.
Under the turntable molding, I got the sexy job, espionage and bending of coding. As I lied to millions like Dan Rather.
Well, fuck it, I'll be a dance rapper, fastening my pants backwards, rambling about France, Ferdinand and France Kafka. For spitting nice, I'll give you advice like Ann Landers.
And from me, you shall be handed lanyards before you pick clean. Your haircut 16 and with obviously 36. Gravy drips on your pancreas on a serving dish. Cause I don't approve bookings of sexual chocolates front man. I crush his glands to the size of a Hershey's kiss.
At some point, I'm gonna do a whole dedicated study about straight off verses. How did that process go?
Yeah, now this is as far as I remember it going, but we were in my home studio. I think he went first, and yeah, he did 4 bars, I think. And before he recorded it, and while he's recording it, I know where it's going, so I'm writing my next 4 to come off of that. And then it kind of just went back and forth that way. Like writing, sharing, listening, recording, and then the next person writes, shares, listens, record, and then like sometimes it's like four, sometimes it's like two, sometimes it's like eight, you know. So and that part was kind of more done by feeling, like how far we should go each time. But it was just literally like sitting and writing together and sharing, write, record, write, record, write, record, write, record.
Like it's rain, how's the weather outside? Don't see any clouds. The forecast is partly cloudy, so party loudly and make sure that it's hearty sounding. He's crown king of the evening, whistling the chord swings to the sweetest thing. A genie with a brown leather wish bag with the power to ring.
Partly Cloudy. This song is just a song, such a great vibe and feeling to it. And honestly, I just want to curious to hear you talk about this song.
So this song was just like a feeling, man. It's just like a little painting. Like it's this little dark, rainy painting. And I think the first thing that came to me was wanting to do that De La Soul's it ego tripping. I rain dance.
The last ray of the setting sun, let it come. The water pressure's better when it runs. This is second to none. It's the matzah, not by chance. If they wanna come, let them come. I'll never run.
That was like, okay, I want that to be in the hook. So then this rain dance thing comes, and I'm like, damn, the beat sounds kind of like cloudy, but it's like, and then like the phrase partly cloudy came to me. So I was like, oh yeah, partly cloudy, party loudly. Like I just wanted to play with that. And then it kind of became stream of consciousness just with those factors. But I always really liked this song a lot. Like it's like sometimes a song comes from like a whole lot of focus and planning and crafting, but this one was more just like, oh, I like this vibe, I like this image, I like this phrase. Let me write this out. And I just loved it. Like it's just that evening encapsulated that I recorded it, you know?
It's funny because I think if I would call any song on this record, for me personally, a sleeper track, it'd be this one. This is one that when I listen to it now, I like it more, or it connects to it more than I did when I first heard the album.
Totally. Yeah, it's real smooth. It's other points on the album that are like overtly exciting. You know what I'm saying? It's real easy to let this one slip by, but like that, yeah, that vibe is something. There's something to that, you know.
Whenever I was kinda bored, thoughts of the girl I adored ignite a war. Haunted by the angry white Jesus by the door. Natural impulses I strive to ignore was divided to the core. The age-old battle between human anatomy versus science of the Lord. I came real close to leaving my burdens by the door until I asked the preacher man about the dinosaurs and
dinosaur fossils. God put those here to test our faith. We added up all the people born from Adam and Eve, added up their age.
So maybe talk about this song, how it came together, and this like your approach to writing and telling stories.
So Serengeti is one of my favorite artists ever, and our story actually, we went to college together too. So me, him, and Hannibal, I went to school together.
She didn't really want to get Botox, really. She rather vowed against it, but opportunity arose. It would increase the chances to get this gig. The manager said, I'm not saying anything, but we can really use it right now. Besides, what's the big deal?
And he's just been one of the most exciting artists in indie hip hop for as long as I can remember. And we've done a few collaborations together. I think this is our first one. The fun thing about recording with him, especially like, because we have our stuff we do together as Kavanaugh, that we sit in a room and make music together.
You're not taking food off my table. I owe 200 grand in back taxes. I just wanna see you on your mattress. Eat your food and watching your actions. Look at your cable, touching your navel. Take you out dancing after that bagel. Got you a gift in the trunk of my Sable, but you're not taking food off my table.
Heart of darkness, extra nothing. I don't know combos, I'm pressing buttons. Except what I get, question nothing. Except for myself when I'm. But other than that, like usually I'll just start off a song and send it to him, and I tell him I want him to do a verse, and he never follows what I do. He always just completely does his own thing. But I love that about him, because I think that he ends up being informed by what I do, but in his way, which is very oblique. Like, and so it ends up being like a conversation that it has some threads, but it's not like the two verses aren't in conversation with each other. And we've done that like 3 times, but I always like that. And then, yeah, so I wrote a story here about my like Christian upbringing and how much of that I was into, and how that whole world kind of fell apart for me when I started getting skeptical. And yeah, and I wrote that to that beat. I felt like, and I started the song by myself, and I felt like what I wrote kind of stood alone. Like that was kind of the beginning and the end of what I wanted to say about that. And then Jefferson DeJesus was a singer who was doing a bunch of stuff in LA at the time. So I had her do the hook. She did her own complete thing. And hers, they're kind of covertly informed by what I was writing, but not like a direct connection.
It seems if we lie where we lay, they'll decide it. They say that it's right, but it doesn't seem right.
Garbage Man. I feel like I'm missing a layer here. I feel like something's trying to sneak by me in that song.
That's so funny because it's so true.
Okay. I'm like, you're trying to be sneaky here, but I'm on to you. I haven't figured it out. I'm
Oh
on to you.
God. I mean, I'll tell you part of the mystery, but not the whole mystery.
Fair enough. Like I had a feeling that was gonna be the case too. Something about it. Okay.
Don't even look at me, I'm just a garbage man. Working in my garden with heart in hand. Watching the harvest of artist land. But new plants want the same thing as stars demand. Don't even look at us. Abrasive as a carpet burn. Right before the key to your apartment turns, we take the needle off a hard to earn.
So this is a diss song. This is a diss track to a LA rapper that I will not name because I was mad at something I heard that person said, but it wasn't like it was ever said to me. I don't even know if it really happened or if it did happen, who exactly he was referring to. But I was very sensitive at that time of my place and things and my crew's place and things. So I took it very personally and wrote this whole ass song with this person in mind. And that's what this is.
So has anyone or that person ever come up to you and like recognize who it was about?
Never. This is the first time anybody even ever asked me if it was about somebody.
I had a nightmare of Tony Blair. I had a dream I cracked him in the head with a folding chair. I had the people just hold him there and bashed his dome until blood splashed his golden hair. I drew his ass a mustache with a Sharpie marker and cut his head like an artsy barber.
Mold in your ministry. With Silence. That's Silence from Chicago. They're digital, right?
No, this is Silencio. He's an LA producer from Juice.
All right, there you go. So I'll break that down. How'd that connect?
So Silence is a cat I used to work with a lot out here for music and like he had a little bit of a managerial mind too. So there was a couple opportunities he helped me put together, and he was big in this LA hip hop program called Juice, where all the four arts are taught to like inner city kids. And I worked with that program for a while too. And he had beats, and we used to hang out a lot. And I liked one of his beats. And I actually wrote this song to one of my own beats like a couple years before that. And when I heard his beat, I liked it. So I refitted the song to his track.
Ladies and gentlemen, the world's most dangerous.
Go home. Let's talk about the swim team and who that is and this posse cut.
Whether it's the weekend or weekday night, you know the swim team gonna rock until you go home.
Man, that's my crew. So it started with Thirsty Fish in LA, which is me, Psychosis, and Dumbfounded, and then the other, a lot of other people in our rap class at the Blow, and it's not a literal class, but just like our generation. Satire, Rogue Venom, Lyra Flip, Alpha MC, Joe Self, DJ Far West, DJ Zoe. We became the swim team. We did a bunch of posse cuts at the time. We made mixtape. We always own each other's stuff. A lot of us still friends to this day. Verbi S, I forgot to mention. Yeah, and this song is how I used to end every one of my sets when I was doing shows at this time. But I often wasn't around the rest of the swim team, like if I was on tour or something. So I would do it, and I would invite MCs on stage, and we'd all freestyle, and I would do the go home chorus like in between each person.
Whether it's a weekend or weekday night, you know the swim team gonna rock until you go home. Until you go home. Hey,
I quickly learned not to do that because you talk about gambling. Yeah, those were huge gambles that ended poorly many times. So I learned not to open up my show to that kind of chaos, especially because I'm like opening for somebody else, and inviting all type of assholes on stage, like,
But it's a great idea till you experience it.
yeah, it was fun. It was super fun. Like, and when it went good, it was great. And there's still like MCs I have relationships with off of doing that, but it's just not a good thing to do, especially if it's literally somebody else's show. And that kind of spirit was the spirit of the song, and that was the spirit of our crew too. So we just rhyme anywhere. Like, yeah. So Go Home was the spirit of all of that. It's the spirit of the swim team.
Nice. You talked about this a little bit, and I think this is different than a lot of artists. You seem like you were doing a decent amount of touring and stuff before you even had a debut record.
True.
So, what kind of touring did you do for this record? And was it a big tour? Was it overseas? How extensive was it for this record?
Nah, it wasn't overseas. So this album came out in 2010. I don't think I ended up going to Europe till like 2015. Yeah. So this one was I had only done 2 tours, I think, before this album came out, but they were like formative tours for me. The first one was Bus Driving Abstract Rude, which was like my real first tour, like leaving the state and going, to rap other places and coming home. And then the next tour was with Chesky and Mocha Only and Factor. Chesky, Factor, and Mocha Only. We did a whole big run. And like those two, you know, really shaped my touring experience for like years to come. And I think my album came out right after the Chesky tour. And then since I was coming into the game very DIY, I was hipped to the opportunity to connect with those promoters from those 2 tours and book my own tours. So for I think the rest of the touring I did for this album and even the next album, Rappers Die Natural Causes, it was shit that I booked. And because I had enough connects to do like the whole West Coast, some of the East Coast, some of the Midwest. So yeah, like that's I don't remember if I was able to tour this album specifically, and I don't think I was, but I was able to jump on other people's stuff and book my own stuff, which just, was endless experience points on the touring side.
Getting things winding down here, but some things I always curious about, especially when talking about like a defining record like this for your career. What were some of the bigger doors you feel like this album opened for you? I know you're already right here. It's your first time working with a label. You talked about the important tours. Anything else that like any connections you made, press, radio support, anything that stands out like, wow, that thing made a difference in my career?
I would say 2 things. I would say, yeah, college radio, being introduced to that world and those people who pull those levers, and that was important. And then, yeah, press. I still have some relationships with some writers based on them being hip to this album. Like, so this is because this is the first work that I ever put out that got like reviews and mentions, and even if all of them weren't favorable, it was a lot of the times that writers heard of me for the first time. And I think just there's something about what I bring to my writing that writers seem to respond to, even if they don't always like the music. I think that for a writer who's really paying attention to writing, I tend to give them something to chew on. And so this opening those doors was really important, that a lot of writers became aware of me.
That's actually a great lead into this next question. And I didn't think about it from the writer's standpoint, which is a great way to look at it. But because of the way you write, in a few ways, because you're a creative writer, you also use sarcasm a lot. Do you have a lot of struggles with people misunderstanding what you mean or what you intend in your lyrics, whether it's from the press, from fans coming up to you like,
Genius gets it wrong constantly. But yeah, people misinterpret a lot. But really the challenge that I've found more difficult is that there's a lot of people like, okay, so we just talked about the writers and the writers paying attention because they're writers, so they listen close. What I have been often shocked by is the amount of people who are into my music that don't really pay a lot of attention to the lyrics. Like, that's not necessarily why they're in it for. And that's just always been baffling to me. Like, because I feel like that's the part I'm putting the most thought into. That's the flag I'm waving is, hey, look at me with these lyrics I pay attention to. So if somebody's into me and it's not because of that, it's like I don't even know why, you know. And so that's always been the thing I've tried to wrap my head around. Like, not only the fact that, once you put something out, people have their interpretations of it and they can think whatever they want to think. You can't really control that, which is the first lesson you learn. But then also the fact that, like, you've no idea why anybody likes you ever. Like, you can have the things that you value about your work, but you just never know why people are going to connect with you. I think it, for me, it just became important to be open to all of the ways that that could happen.
You're being intentional about being a creative and what I would call a great writer, but you're sort of like, I don't know if the word is oblivious, but the other side is just who you are.
Yeah.
They're just attracted to who you are as a personality.
Yeah, because I got a lot of people who were fans of mine who they maybe became fans of mine because I was doing a podcast about the TV show Adventure Time or wrestling or whatever. Like, and they get into my orbit and start messing with my music. But yeah, like you're right. A lot of times it can just be something about a personality or something about a vibe. It's just got nothing to do with the words that I'm writing. And I don't always keep that front of mind. And because I don't always keep that in front of mind, it still always surprises me.
My last question was, and I always wondered this a lot about people. I know a lot of artists, and friends with a lot of artists, and been an artist myself. And it's always interesting how people feel about their older material. Like some people just never want to listen to it, and just everything if you bring it up, they're just going to be playfully negative about it, or don't even want to talk about it. You're like talking about you're bringing up everything you've ever done on a podcast to the whole world to see. So like,
Yeah.
how do you generally look at like your old material? Do you go back and listen to think about where you're going forward, or do you just keep moving forward? And how do you feel about it, just where it sits in your past?
I tend to keep moving forward, and but there tends to be like a couple years sort of range of stuff that I will go back to more easily. Like this album is so old now that I barely ever listen to this. I barely ever perform any of these songs now. If anything, I'll perform Pissy Transmission sometimes because I think that one for me still feels like if I wrote this song again today, it would probably still sound much like this. Where like a lot of other songs on this album, if I was writing them today, I would do different things. Like not that I think I did anything wrong or bad, or it's just that I one thing that I see very clearly on this album is that like I was very locked into this pattern of like 4 bars of the same like the same multi-syllable rhyme. Like I always wanted every 4 bars to have the same perfect like rhyme structure. And I can look at that and love how I did it because I think I did it all conversationally and smooth. I never had to reach too far to get something to make it work. And I appreciate that. But it just to me, it feels very much like it's in a grid. It's locked. It's very like it's almost like closed-minded in a way because there's things that a beat can ask you to do to break that. And I wasn't open to any of that. And I think that in the way that I write now, like I consider myself much more open to those flourishes and where things can go. But I'll say this, in the other podcasts that I've done, I've talked about my albums. I've made sure to listen to the album in full before I had the conversation. This one, and I don't know if this is on purpose or not, but I forgot to until like a half hour before we're supposed to start. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, oh, I just kind of clicked it and listened around a little bit. But I think maybe I didn't really want to sit and do the whole 45-minute experience. And it's not because I don't think it's bad. There are certainly things that I wish I could have done better in terms of the singing and in terms of the deliveries of certain things. But again, I was just using the tools that I had. And this is literally my debut, and my tools were blunt in a lot of cases. And so, I was doing the best I could. But sometimes, yeah, it can be hard to sit with yourself when you're unrefined and be reminded of that. But I am still very proud of it. Like I think in a lot of ways it did exactly what I was intending for it to do, with even with the parts that stand out to me as having needed improvement.
No, that's perfect, man, and that's good to hear. And I can't remember if I mentioned this earlier, but it stood out to me because you consider a debut, but like it's impressive for a few reasons. But one of them is like at that point, how you were already so good at not only just as a writer, but just at structuring songs, how you built narratives. There's certain things that stand out to why I love music, and I like all kinds of different genres, styles, from hardcore to playful. To me, it's like that person put some time and thought into it. That's really like the main thing. If I believe that person put time and thought and they actually care about it, I'm already a fan of it. And this matter of how much of a fan I am of it from there. And so like that's something that's like super apparent in your music. Like, oh, there's definitely intention here. And I like you're saying, like, even like with the right, what you're saying with the critics, like even if they don't like the music, they're like, okay, he is putting some thought into this. I'm at least got to give it a listen. So I think that's a great way you were doing that as early on. So this is like for me was an honor because like I'm a fan of this record. I'm a fan of you as what you do as an artist and a person. Like like you do great things, musically and just like you always bring great vibes too. So like that's just a rare combination.
Well, I'm honored because you helped create me in time travel radio. Like, especially this new album that is inspired by mixtapes from taping radio shows at that era. Like, NUR is in there. Like, there's experiences I had with that music that you directly help facilitate. So like, it's an honor to have a relationship with you and an honor that you would come on and do this. And before I let you go, I did want you to shout out your podcast, Stories About Songs.
Yeah. So yeah, I got a podcast, Stories About Song. Me and Rob Van Vranken. It does all the engineering and all and so forth. And did one season that's came out previously. Basically, people know me for like my hip hop history and studying that. And I wanted to just do something a little different because I just like we talked about on this podcast. I love storytelling. I love listening. I love telling stories. So I wanted to find a way to tell hip hop history that was a little more personalized and kind of give it right from my vantage point. And like I've had a lot of experiences, but directly with artists or indirectly with artists, and I try to find a way to like tell those stories and build the narrative with sound bites and different clips and sometimes my historical interviews. And season 2 is on its way.
Yeah, we'll have some news about that soon. Stay tuned for news about season 2 of Stories About Songs. It's an amazing podcast, like you said. It's coming from his direct experience, which is with a wealth of different artists, and Rob does a great job of sonically making everything sound incredible and immersive. So we look forward to hearing more about that, and y'all stay tuned for news from that soon. Thank you for your time and impeccable questions. And Mr. Kevin, I hope you have a great day.
You as well. My pleasure, man. I'm looking forward to what we got coming next. Yeah. A new album. I'm looking forward to the album, man.
Oh, right around the corner.
All right, my man.
Thanks for watching that. And if you dug that, leave a thumbs up and say what up in the comments. And make sure to subscribe to Stony Island Audio for more.